Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by Spartan Forge. On today's episode, I am joined by Jordan Hollandsworth from the mountains of Southern Virginia. Jordan has been able to kill some extremely impressive big woods mountain bucks in an area not known for giant deer. We discuss the story of his 2021 buck, where he focuses his time scouting, trail camera strategies, keys to consistent success, wind and thermals, one-sticking saddle hunting, and much more. On today's Mountain Buck Monday story of the week, this one comes from Kevin High out of Pennsylvania. So first of all, I want to say Kevin wrote to me and he's shared this photo and a story. He's like, I know you mostly share, public land mountain bucks, and I don't know if you're interested in this story because it's on private land. And I just want to let everybody know, I don't care at all if you hunt public or private land. Mountain bucks are mountain bucks, big woods deer. I like sharing them all. I like hearing about them all. For the most part, I hunt public land. I do hunt some private land. I don't care what anybody does. As long as it's legal, I like it. And I think that's awesome that Kevin shared this story. So Kevin wrote in, I acquired the hunting rights to a 14.5 acre property in Pennsylvania my buddy bought in the middle of 2020. The property is on the very top of a mountain. My first order of business was installing a water hole and a food plot. The water hole was an instant hit, but the food plot was a work in progress, but had good bucks show up randomly in late October and in early November, checking on our few local does. After pulling in a ton of work, the plot was better for 2021, and I was able to arrow my biggest bow buck on October 30th at 22 yards. The buck field dressed at 215 pounds and scored 137 inches. Such an awesome deer, and actually Kevin had shared a little video of that buck too, so I shared all that over on the Instagram, East Meets West Hunt, and Facebook, East Meets West Outdoors. So you can go over and check that out. So last week I had announced that I'm going to be doing a mountain buck scouting camp in Pennsylvania, April 9th and 10th that weekend, and I asked for feedback on 1 or 2 days. I asked for feedback on the price. I asked for feedback on just about everything and I got a ton of feedback, and so I'm only going to take 20 to 25 people. I have decided on a 2-day course. It's going to be more like 1.5 days. It's not going to be a full day the second day, but I want to get a lot of in-the-field scouting involved in this, as well as not cramming everything into one day once I started looking at it. So going to do that, and I'll have more details. I'm really pushing for the end of this week. So if you want the details first, then I'm going to announce on the podcast next week. But I'll get it out first through email. So if you go to my website, eastmeetswesthunt.com, and there's a little contact us form there. Fill that in. Say you're interested in the scouting course. I've got a ton of emails already on it. And I will be contacting you first because I'm only taking 20 to 25 people in this. Actually, I was blown away by the people that have reached out so far. I've got, as of now, over 140 people that are interested in wanting to do it. So I don't know. It always depends once you have to get the credit card out whether people will sign up there or not. But I'll have a lot more details on that soon, but definitely would recommend signing up for the email list there, because that'll be the first place that I release any of the information on it. I'd mentioned last week that Jake Bush is going to be coming. Jake had to back out because he has to work that weekend, as he saw his schedule. But I have Steve Shirk, who I was planning on asking anyways. Talked to him today, and he's in. So him, Johnny Stewart's in. Pretty sure Chad from Exit Trail Cameras will be coming out. Bill from Spartan Forge, and Taylor Chamberlain from Tethered. And it'll be a really good event, and it's going to be packed full of information. I'm excited to be able to put this on and learn from other people. Like I said, just be patient with me getting this information out. Just been really, really busy with my day job, getting seemingly busier, and then everything with East Meets West on the side has been pretty crazy here lately. So trying to get all that stuff together. In other news, I'll be at, if you're listening to this when it comes out, I'll be at the Maven Optics booth at the Great American Outdoor Show Saturday and Sunday. I'll be there working for Maven. I've done it for the last 6 or 7 years now. I just work the booth, not just there to inform people on the products, get your hands on the products, to be able to check that out. So hope that if you're there, stop by, check out some of the Maven Optics, and say hello. I would definitely appreciate that. And I hope everyone has a great week. Keep sending your feedback if you have any other ideas or suggestions for the scouting camp that going to be doing, or really anything else, podcast topics, things like that. Send it in. I love to hear that feedback. So hope everyone has a great rest of your week. All right, we're live. Jordan Hollandsworth, welcome to the show.
Hey, Beau, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this one because I found out that I'm stealing your podcast virginity, and this is your first time ever being on a show, so I'm pumped about it.
That is correct. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Yeah, Southwest Virginia, Abingdon to be exact, close to Tennessee, North Carolina, all that intersection right there. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And how I got to, I guess, talk to you at first was I think it was, you might have sent in a submission to the Mountain Buck Monday, and then another one, and then we started talking a little bit, and I was like, man, this guy's a killer, and also and Nathan Killen also speaks very highly of you, as you guys are both Virginia mountain hunters. So when I asked you to come on the show and you agreed, I was excited about it.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that, Beau. Yeah, I talk to Nathan every now and then, and he's given me a lot of good pointers for hunting these mountains in Southwest Virginia, Appalachian mountains, and yeah, I think I've been pretty blessed the past few years.
Yeah,
killing pretty good bucks.
Yeah. So tell me a little background on yourself and who you are, and you told me where you're from, but just give a little background on yourself.
So I'm a photographer. I've been a full-time photographer since I guess five years now. I've been doing it since 2015. Now I do weddings and stuff, and starting to travel more, and like this past year, went to Colorado and Wyoming, California, Jamaica, doing weddings, and it's fun. Get to do it with my wife and travel all over, and so also I think that affords me the ability to be able to spend so much time hunting.
Yeah.
So get to make my own schedule, and it's kind of hard to put away time to hunt as opposed to doing business, but I make myself do it. That's about the only time of year that I get to set everything aside in November and get in the woods and chase whitetails. But
yeah,
aside from that, I guess I got into hunting at a very young age, just like most everybody. My dad introduced me to it when I was really young, maybe 8 or 9, and he took me with him deer hunting. I remember it was muzzleloader hunting on public land, and I was with him right at his thigh on a ridge, and a young buck come down through there, and he shot it, and it was like 10 yards or something, fell right there in front of us. Man, I was hooked. I got to get some of this. I got teach me how.
Yeah.
And, Dad kind of, showed me the ropes of the basics and got me into it, and just took off from there. And I guess I kept going with it.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So
Did you when you went, full time with photography, was that something you had in mind, of wanting to be able to have more time to hunt, or were you just super passionate about doing photography and that as kind of a business and career?
I think the idea of photography was first and foremost. For a career, it's like, man, I love it. I've always done it. It's been a hobby of mine. Shooting wildlife and landscapes, but it's really hard to get into get a deer or a landscape to pay you. So like I kind of got into the rest of the stuff, the families and seniors, weddings, and all that. But yeah, but then the good part about it, hunting, a lot of time hunting come out of it. So yeah, that was perfect little setup.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And so with that being said, where you live at in Virginia, and I guess like the types of areas that you hunt, describe what the landscape's like a little bit, because I've never hunted the area. I've driven through Virginia and some of the mountain areas. I worked for a while in Virginia in some of the mountain areas, and it's big country, and it's very there's a lot of elevation from top to bottom,
That's right.
bigger than what we have in most of the places here in Pennsylvania, just from pure from bottom to top, size wise. It's just big country.
Yeah, it is. It is quite ridiculous. I mean, that's yeah. The mountains around here are can be pretty rugged. I mean, like I think the deer I killed this past year, it was on a piece of public that was just a piece, and it connects to other pieces. It was like 40,000 acres, just unbroken forest, rugged mountaintops, and mountain laurel and rhododendron, and hardwoods, oaks, and all that. But pretty rugged. There ain't much flat around here.
Yeah. No, it definitely doesn't look at. I've spent a lot of time looking at maps too, in the area there, just because like I'd love to hunt that area at some point. I'm just obsessed with just anywhere in the Appalachian mountain region, and just wanting to spend time in a lot of different areas and just see it. And like I said, for me, it's just like, okay, how do you how when you break down like just all the different elevation levels, doing that. And I'm not asking you that question yet, because we'll get into that, but just like, again, looking at it from the outside looking in, it's big country, and it can be overwhelming for people.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you just look at a big piece of unbroken land, unbroken forest, and it's just topo ridges and valleys for days. I mean, and it's kind of mind-boggling to kind of sit down and dissect it, but if you know what you're looking for, you can kind of pick it apart a little and get in there and get boots on the ground and check it out.
Yeah, so I think how I want to start this, and it's kind of a little bit different than I had planned, but I'd like to just hear the story of your 2021 deer, explaining, from the point of finding this deer and all the way through and to the point where you killed him, and then just ask some questions throughout, and then kind of go backwards from that. Does that sound good with you?
Yeah, sure. So where I killed this deer in 2021 was a totally new spot. Hadn't ever set foot on there but one time before. The one time before, I walked through there a couple miles back, and in those obvious spots, I saw good deer sign, big rubs, good scrapes, like some community scrapes that were really pawed out. Looked like, maybe several aggressive deer were using that scrape, and pretty good sized rubs. So I hunted that first time till dark. Thought I was in a pretty good spot, good setup, but some turkeys kind of spooked and went the direction that I thought the deer may be, and I didn't see anything that day. So I, kind of put that spot in the back of my head. And
so let me take a step back here before you go any further. So what did this spot look like that that you were finding this sign in? Like what was I guess particular about it? Maybe what the terrain looked like, maybe what the vegetation looked like. What made you go there, and why do you think that big sign was there?
Well, the country is really rugged. It looked kind of like it was kind of like an overlooked spot, a place where you could get away from people, get deep into public, and away from the road. So really, that's the reason I went there. There are several eastern facing slopes that I saw in there from a topo. Really thick country. You kind of tell that from just driving by it. But yeah, I'd say that's the reason I wanted to check it out.
So you focus a lot on eastern facing slopes. Is that because of primarily westerly winds, or what makes you look at those slopes?
Yeah, I think it's those predominant winds coming out of the west. Coming over those ridge tops. I think those bucks like to, tend to stay on those sides, bed on those sides, eastern facing slopes.
Okay. And then is that a trend too that you see as far as with the thick rhododendron and mountain laurel and stuff? Is that where you typically are finding these deer in some of those real thick, nasty areas?
Yeah, I think I think that contributes a lot to it. And not every eastern facing slope is created equal, and they don't all hold good deer or whatever. You just gotta check them all out and get in there and see what's going on.
Did you when you said you found this sign, was that in the spring that you found it that made you want to focus on it that year, or was that like at the beginning of the season?
Well, that was during season. That may have been a week before I killed the deer. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was getting like mid-November, and I was getting a little nervous. I didn't know if I was going to make it happen.
Yeah.
Like, man, I got to switch it up and go somewhere else. And went in there at one time, saw that sign. I don't know. It might have been a week later. I went in there mid-morning and pushed deeper and kept following the sign, the big sign, and kind of went a little, I don't know. I just kept going deeper and got on a steep, thick, nasty eastern facing slope, but you couldn't even tell it was an eastern facing slope hardly on the map. It was just like a little tiny terrain feature. And I got up in there and went around the bend, and I saw some beds and got just under the top and got around a tree that had mountain laurel around it, real thick, and it's kind of like a little natural blind. I kind of sit up there against a tree and sit there for maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes and got settled. And I think I grunted a few times and turned over that fawn bleat call. And now 5 or 10 minutes, I heard one coming off the top of the ridge, and I saw antlers, and he come down the ridge, and then I thought he was going to come straight down the ridge, but he's turned and started coming right towards me, and I shot him like 1/4 at 10 yards with a rifle. So,
Man,
yeah, it was perfect.
on the ground.
That was great. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So do you think that, I mean, did you think he was cruising for does or something, or was he, do you think he was bedded right there on that little knob or terrain feature that you were finding on that eastern facing slope?
I think he was coming back to bed down in there where I was, or he had heard that grunt and bleat that I did, and he was coming to that. After I killed him, like he didn't smell real musky like they usually do that time of year. Like he was rutting. Like the rut here was weird this year. I don't know. I didn't see much all year. Like it was tough.
Yeah.
Very.
The rut for us was I would say it would be the same way. I didn't hunt it much personally, but from everybody else that I talked to in my family and running cameras and stuff. And it was a weird year. It didn't seem like there was any, like, there was a few days based on my cameras that seemed like they were more standout than others as far as deer movement goes, but it wasn't like, I don't know, it just didn't seem very typical whatsoever. And what was the day that you ended up killing that deer?
I think it was the 22nd.
Okay, so later in November there.
It was pretty late. Yeah, I hunted like, usually I hunt like all in November until I get it done. But like all up until November 22nd, I hunted like all in November. And I saw a few good bucks that were just out of range in the first week in November. But other than that, I didn't see nothing. Like hardly any does, bucks, nothing. Like it was treacherous. Rough year.
So do you hunt October much at all, or are you still doing a lot of weddings and stuff at that point?
Well, October is like one of the busiest busiest months for photography, and I try to get out there some, and I try to kind of limit it so I don't get burnt out. I learned my lesson on that a long time ago.
Yeah.
Be out there every day up until November is the best time, but so a few days here and there in October.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you're mostly trying to focus on your high priority days in November. That's the way I've done it to this point too. It's like I hunt maybe 3 or 4 days really in October every year, and then that's when I take my vacation from work or whatever. It always seems to be throughout, and in the big woods, unless you are like living there and learning those food sources and how to, I mean, it's just tough. So if you're looking at when's the best to spend your time, I agree with you. The rut's the ticket.
That's right. Yeah, you got it done early, first day of October.
I know. And then when I shot my New York buck was in October too, and that was like that. This is a year that wasn't typical. Let's put it that way. Typically, I'm a mid-November type, last week kind of guy at the archery season, and it was weird. It was funny. Someone was asking me, like, how did you feel with it? And I was like, I don't know. It was weird because, like, I almost felt anxiety, like I should be doing something, like I should be hunting hard, or I should be doing something, during the rut. I'm at work and I'm like, this is weird. I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to handle it. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. It was definitely different, but so that's when you're scouting and everything, that's a lot of that is based around hunting the rut from the sounds of it.
Pretty well. I do a lot of scouting, like in season scouting when I'm hunting. Like I have traditional spots, that I guess produced or I saw saw that it was holding mature deer or whatever last year or years prior, and I'll hunt those and know that they'll be okay. But if that doesn't work out, I'll go somewhere else and do in season scouting, and find that hot sign and big sign and go from there.
How much do you do much as far as spring scouting?
I do a good bit while I'm shed hunting.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say I find a lot of sheds, but I think I do more scouting than shed hunting. But every chance I can, I get out in the spring, like February, March, and do scouting check out everything from last. You can see a lot from last rut and see what's been going on.
Yeah. And with so to look at when you're looking at scouting, how much do you do from like an aerial scouting standpoint versus do you just look at it quickly and then you need to get boots on the ground, or do you spend a lot of time on the computer and looking at the maps from that standpoint? What's your kind of approach to that?
I'd say I spend a good amount of time like on the computer at topos, looking for new areas, looking at terrain features for new spots to check out. But other than that, once you determine an area you want to go, like I got to get in there. I got to get in there and check it out because, it could pan out and it could not. I don't think I figured out that real magic look to the topo yet. But, hey, that's where I need to go, and then I go in there, and that's where I need to be. So, yeah, I got to check it out.
Yeah. So like when those areas that you're looking at that kind of jump out at you talked about eastern facing slopes, you're talking about thick areas. Is there any other like terrain features or anything like that jump out at you as something that you need to check out, or when you're in there, if you find it, it's like, okay, this is something that's important?
From looking at a topo?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe looking at a big, pretty saddle, and that would help me not to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. From everybody else. Yeah.
I don't know. I'd say mainly I just focus on the eastern side of ridges, and far back away from the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like secondary ridges off of the main mountain range.
Okay.
The eastern side of those.
Things that are like, so you either got to go up or down to get to them. So it kind of reduces the amount of hunting pressure that it's going to have.
Yeah, that's right. It's usually up.
Yeah.
Around here, it's usually up.
Yeah. That's funny. Like I was alluding to earlier, and you kind of described, it's definitely steep country. So you're having to climb and put some effort into it, some sweat equity to get to some of these spots from the sounds of it.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's every time. Yeah, these hikes are pretty treacherous.
Yeah,
like
doing it every day, day after day in November. That's what you're talking about, the burnout. That's until people until people hunt like the mountains or hunt some of these big woods areas. Like, you don't understand. Like, it's one thing. It is tiring to sit in the tree all day. Don't get me wrong, but when you have to talk yourself into getting up at 3 a.m. or whatever it is to drive to your spot and hike in and get in there, it's day after day after day. It just wears on you.
Oh man, yeah, it's tough. Like, it's real bad. Like, come Sunday, you can't hunt on public on Sunday down here, and I'm like thankful, kind of like I need a break,
Yeah.
Pretty rough.
That's funny. What about all right, so when you go into scout an area, whether it's in the spring or in season, are you going to like those points of interest, say like these eastern facing slopes, and just trying to walk as much of it as you can? Do you try to like what's your strategy when you look at a new area and you're heading into it?
Well, I think really I kind of go through the entire new area, keep my eyes peeled. I kind of go through those obvious areas that, some, maybe the majority of people hunt, like these pretty open woods, and there's a lot of sign there usually. So I check those spots out, saddles, stuff like that. Check for the sign, and then I'll kind of branch off from there. If I find once I start finding sign, just kind of follow it. See where the next big rub is, or next scrape, and I'll just go from there.
Yeah. And I guess that's an important point. Some of those pretty areas that might attract other hunters, but they leave sign there, so you can, find that big sign that you're looking for, knowing that there's a big deer in the area without, beating brush through the laurel and the rhododendron, trying to see it from that aspect.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can kind of, if you, like if I find sign and big deer sign in one of those pretty areas, I might back out and go back to the map and look at the terrain features and such from my topo map once I get out in relation to that big sign.
Mm-hmm. And then try to put the pieces of the puzzle together at that point.
Right.
And what when you say you're finding big sign, are you looking at rubs and scrapes for the most part? What do you consider as big sign?
I'd say, well, I think rubs are about the only thing you can kind of determine that a substantial deer has left there.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of tell how aggressive the deer is, and I kind of relate. If the big tree is shredded versus it's just there's a little scrape or two on it. The height of the rub, and like scrapes, if they're really pawed out and big as a truck hood, like you hear all the time, and kind of makes you feel like a bigger, mature deer, aggressive deer has left that sign.
Yeah, and what about beds? Do you look for beds? What's your thoughts on finding beds? Do they play much a role in into your game plan with hunting? Since you are hunting the rut, does that come into play at all? What are your thoughts on buck bedding and doe bedding, I guess?
I don't know, really. I guess like this time of year when I'm out scouting, I really pay attention to them. That's really when I look for them, and kind of keep that in the back of my mind for the coming season. But I do kind of have bedding in the back of my mind for these areas I hunt. I usually had found them, the season prior or off season, and kind of have an idea of where bucks and does are bedding in the area. Yeah.
Yeah. And is there anything that you see like from, buck bedding? Do you see them, you always hear, and a lot of times I've found it true, but sometimes I haven't, like where bucks are bedding, out on a point, or where they have good visual. What do you kind of see do you see any trends with buck bedding?
I do, yeah. That out on a point, where they have that wind coming over their back. Sometimes they have visual, and sometimes it's mainly just scent. A lot of times it's on a steep slope where there's a flat spot. It's going to be really steep, but there's just a little flat spot on these steep slopes where a buck can bed.
Mm-hmm. And what about with doe? What about with doe bedding? How much does that come into play, especially with you hunting the rut? Do you focus at all on doe bedding?
There's a little smidge of me that pays attention to doe bedding. I kind of have an idea of where they'll be and where they'll be bedding. Like I said before, I kind of have an idea and figure a little bit of that out when I'm scouting postseason. I try not to bust through and look through everything during season, but kind of go through it all postseason. But yeah, I kind of have a little bit of that in the back of my mind, that doe bedding. Yeah.
And doe bedding, it's so difficult because it can seem so random at times, because does, when they're in groups, they can really bed anywhere and have
Right.
they can bed in a circle and have visuals of all different directions, and I don't know if it's just something that I've seen. I know a couple of my buddies were actually the ones that pointed it out to me, was that you'd see a lot of times does bed, like say on the flat oak, say a finger that comes out or anything, and then down overs where you'd find the buck bedding. And typically, like when you'd go in there and if you would bump those does, they would run and almost like send like a warning sign to the bucks to to plop off the ridge. And it's just it's kind of funny. Doe bedding is interesting because you hear so much about buck bedding, but when you're hunting the rut, like a lot of it's based around the does. It's really hard to pinpoint and be like, okay, this is what you typically find doe bedding in versus where buck bedding, I feel like, is a little bit more strategic, and you can kind of figure that out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. Does will bed anywhere, I feel. I mean, I have heard that, like, bucks kind of give ourselves a little security layer of like the doe bedding. If they alert and bust out there, then kind of gives them a heads up to get out too. But I don't think I've experienced that myself, but it makes sense.
Yeah. Have you, so when you're finding some of this, big sign and stuff, and I know you had sent me in a message when we were talking back and forth before this, you were talking about, you only focus on areas that you're finding big sign. Cause I was asking him, like, you've killed quite a few big mature deer. And when I say especially for Virginia, it's especially for Virginia, but they're big deer anywhere. But what I'm saying is, like, you're definitely focusing on big deer. So from the sounds of it, you're just focusing on areas that you find this big sign, and you'll move on until you find that sign you're looking for.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, really, if I don't see big deer sign, then I'm somewhere else. Yeah. I'm looking for the big deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you, so this is going to be kind of interesting. I know your thought on this, but I don't know the details of it. How do you use trail cameras, if you do at all?
I do use trail cameras. I've got, I don't know, 5 or 6 cameras, but I put them out like late summer, early fall, in my areas that have promise, I guess, and areas that I've hunted before. Usually put them on like travel corridors, community scrapes during that time period, and I usually I probably won't check them, but like once before October hunting season, and then after that, I'll either leave them or move them, and then they'll really just sit all hunting season. Like they're all scattered so far and so deep in these areas. Like I need to hunt and not worry about checking trail cameras. So really, they just kind of soak all season where I put them, and then I still haven't checked the ones. I haven't pulled them out from this past season. So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because so I have a mixture of like I use trail cameras a lot, but most of the time it's for next season. Besides, I do have some spots now but it's very touch as far as where I get cell signal, but I will use cell cameras, which helps me a little bit with kind of more now type data. But for the most part, like it's all next year. And like even the buck that I killed this year in opening day, I killed that not on trail camera data from this year. I killed it on the data from last year, and knowing that he liked to use this trail in the late season actually, but the food source was kind of the same with a newer logging cut. So same type of deal. I was just actually laughing. I put some cameras out in April of last year while I was scouting a new area, and I haven't made it back there yet. Like they're still so who knows if they're still running or not, but it's just like, or if they're stolen, who knows. But I just was like, a lot of times I just can't, like you said, when they're in there deep and stuff, it's just you can't. But you're in it, you got to be in it kind of for the long game when it comes to learning these spots and knowing it as you know.
Yeah, I think well, personal opinion, I think that's the best. Like, I never did like checking trail cameras like really often, and then they're so far back in there, and I just want to hunt and kill a deer. Like, I don't think I'm gonna kill a big deer going to check my camera. And there's usually not in spots that I really want to hunt. They're like on a scrape in a pretty open woods, where I don't think they'll be in the daylight. So
yeah, so it's more of an inventory kind of thing for you, and almost confirming that the sign that you're finding that there's a big deer in the area, and then you're gonna adjust and kind of hunt accordingly to that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about okay, so like your spots that you're actually hunting, and I know you say you spend a lot of time hunting, in November. Are you sitting in the same spot a lot? Are you bouncing around? What does that kind of look like for you?
So usually I'll have a particular area that I have an idea that a big deer is in there in the area. I'll hunt there, and like this past season, the 1st of November, I sit, and each day I saw a good buck, and he was just out of range, maybe 80 yards in thick cover, and each day I would move like into range to where he was that day, and like each day he was progressively the same distance away. So like I don't know, he knew something was up. He knew I was in there, or like kept his I don't know. But that happened for 3 days on a pretty good buck in the 1st of November. But I'll move around, I'll bounce around, and but it's mainly an area, and then I'll kind of progress and move within that little area if I need to. And I have multiple spots that I hunt all over the place, really.
Yeah. Okay. And with that, with those setups and the things that that you're looking at? Or do you feel like you spend a lot of time, on the side hills? Do you find yourself on benches? Or is that just completely depending on what the sign you're seeing is? Or how, if you're looking at a spot, and how do you know, like, okay, this is a place that I would consider setting up?
Yeah, I think the sign, like, I don't know, I guess it comes down to just all the years I've been hunting and picked up some woodsmanship along the way, and just been able to read the sign and kind of going off, just knowing, I don't know, where I need to sit, off a relation to the sign. And, I was like a faint trail coming into an area with the big sign, just kind of looking around and reading it. And most of the time it's on a steep hillside.
Okay.
If it's not thick, really, it's not a good hillside, I think. So
Yeah. Okay. So you're all right. That's kind of what I was looking to pull out of you there, and it is difficult because it's hard to put it into words, and every situation is different. So I understand that, but so one thing I think that you said there that was really good was, the faint trails leading up to that big sign. So sometimes you might not be hunting that big sign that say there's this big scrape out in this wide open oaks, but 300-400 yards or however far it is, back in there's some thick cover along this hillside. You might find that trail with some faint rubs or something on it that might be something that would be an area you would focus on. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, just reading the leaf litter that's fallen and trying to see the faint stuff. Because the big bucks don't use those well-worn trails, and you can just barely see where they kind of come through, and just kind of go off of there and go from there.
And how funny is it? Like, I don't know, from the amount of time I've spent in a tree, and I've spent a lot of time hunting those heavily used trails, to learn that, like, the bucks might be close, but a lot of times they'll be in that, like, for me spending a lot of time hunting logging cuts, which I don't think there's as many where you're at, right? Is there many logging cuts?
Not much at all.
Okay, so but where I would hunt the edges, and there might be this big scrape on the edge of it, and that's good, but you always got to be able to shoot into that cover, because that faint trail, or maybe not even a trail sometimes, it's just inside that briars and that cover or whatever it might be, or laurel, that's where they seem to travel. Even if a matter of 10 yards in your setup can make a big difference depending on how that looks.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you just kind of got to have an eye for, spotting the right cover and those faint trails and picking the right tree. It's tough.
Yeah. It's one thing I learned from Nathan in relation to this is, a lot of times with, like, even pretty benches that look good, you might see that sign on it, but the bucks are traveling just above it or just below it. It could be close. You could be, in the game, but not at the same time if you're not, picking the right tree essentially along that. And that takes a lot of time spent, and a lot of time walking around, and a lot of time in a tree of not doing good to realize where you need to be,
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I spent a lot of time this year not doing good.
Yeah.
I mean, I hunted a particular subtle little bench this year with big sign on it, kind of on the edge looking below the bench. And really, this one day I did hunt it was the only rut action I saw all year. And it was like I'd been in my tree till legal shooting light was over, and once I got down out of my tree at dark, a buck come through chasing a doe right after dark, and I was like, it was like 5 yards from me. I was like, dang, I was like, should have been right off the long end of the bench, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're hard to figure out, man.
Yeah, they definitely are, and I guess that's why we keep coming back, for that. But the one thing I notice, like with people like you and anybody else that's consistently successful, is just the persistence side of it, and just gotta keep doing it, because there's no shortcuts, I guess, when it comes to success with that, and seems like it's always a long season.
Yeah, I agree. I think like daggone persistence is the most important thing, and hanging in there until you get it done. I mean, hard work and persistence.
Yeah. Yep. And doing it every chance you get, every chance that you can hunt and can get in there, not leaving early or not doing, it's just plain hard work and doing it and putting the miles on in the spring and walking around and in season until you find that sign. And it's definitely not easy. Obviously, that's why it's there's very few people that are doing it consistently. But again, that's I talk to a lot of good hunters, and if I can pull one thing out of every single one of them, no matter where they hunt, it's the persistent side of it.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, I still feel kind of like I'm in the infancy of the whole realm of killing big deer. But I think I still got a lot to learn, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Hard work.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's the same way. It's just it's a constant learning thing, and I don't think there'll be ever a time when we arrive. It's always going to be trying to strive for more and learn and be able to learn from other people and just and learn from the deer, most importantly, and what they're telling you. How important with wind and thermals and all that stuff come into play with your setups and how you're figuring in any of that stuff?
I don't know. I'd say 50-50. I mean, I halfway pay attention to the wind. If anything, I mean, I kind of have an idea, well, I always have an idea where the wind's coming out of, but if I can hunt on the downwind side of where I think a deer will be coming from, then I'll hunt there. But in the mountains, it starts swirling and getting all squirrely and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and I don't really worry about it at that point. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
You sound like me with as far as I hear people, if the wind shifts that they get down and they move, and I'm like, no, if I did that, I'd never be in a tree.
That's right. I mean, it's crazy. The wind swirls and gets going nuts. Oh, you can't do nothing about it.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. We can do, all we can as far as trying to understand how it works in the area and, what, certain, if it is a good, the hard thing is about especially thick areas that we like to hunt is the vegetation screws up traditional thermals and wind with, it's basically, you think of water flowing and hitting rocks and hitting things, and it's twisting around and spinning and it's hitting the creek bank and doing these things. And it's the same way when you get to thick cover, with a lot of your area with having rhododendrons and mountain laurel, and a lot of my area having hemlock trees and conifer trees mixed in and things. It changes it a lot, and it can be super difficult, and I'm under the opinion I will hunt an area based off of the area more so than worried about screwing it up because of the wind. If it's a good spot, I'm gonna risk it for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I get into a spot, I have milkweed that I throw out and try to see where my current's flowing, and But if it's going the wrong way, like I don't make too big of a deal about
it. Yeah. No, I understand that. And
Yeah.
do you feel like on these steep hillsides, do you feel like you're setting up above them or below them most of the time, or does that depend on the tree that you have available?
I feel like I'm above them most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the travel is kind of like they side hill. If they do come to me, they're going to side hill to me instead of like the one this past year come right off the top of the ridge straight down into the holler to me, which I didn't expect. I thought they would side hill around the ridge to me, but he comes straight off the top. I didn't forget what the question was.
Oh no, about the setting up on the hill, whether you're setting above the trail or below it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say usually above it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, and it's hard below too. Like, I mean, there's a lot of spots I have to kind of set up below, but you're almost at eye level, especially if you're correct with the trail that they're going to be using, and it makes it difficult to get an opportunity at that point.
Yeah, and usually those thermals coming up, I do kind of pay attention to those.
Mm-hmm.
Those thermals rising, then west wind coming over, and then it all mixes together and gets all swirly. And
yeah, if you could see Jordan right now, he's doing a bunch of hand movements. The wind just messing around and swirling and everything. But yeah, that's true. And a lot of the times in that steep country, I mean, most of the day those thermals are coming up depending on where you're at. Besides, when it's shaded and the first thing in the morning and kind of in the evening, and I don't know about you, but like, especially during the rut, like, I mean, I have a lot of midday movement and late morning movement and stuff. So like for me, I'm looking at the best times for that, and also I have a hope that by the time deer's going to get to that point, that I'm gonna be drawn back and I'm gonna be ready by the time he catches my wind. I play that into my game a lot too, and it's because it's not like we're hunting areas where there's a giant deer density and you have to get past 14 does before this buck comes through. It's not that scenario.
Oh yeah, it's the same here. Like, deer densities are very low.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can agree with you there.
Yeah, that's for sure. And do you I know you killed your buck off the ground this year, but do you hunt out of a tree most of the time, or how does that work?
Yeah, most of the time I do hunt out of a tree. This year I just started saddle hunting. I got a tethered Phantom Predator platform, and I've been one sticking with the.
Oh, you've been one sticking it, huh?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Pretty sweet. Yeah. So I've been using that Lone Wolf Custom Gear double step with an aider, and I get on up there and then just rappel right out of the tree. It's
really
awesome. Yeah, I like it. That setup allows me to like get in a tree and take my stuff way back in there, where before I just hunt on the ground. So this year,
interesting.
Yeah, it's been pretty sweet setup.
Ah, that's so interesting. It's funny that you went from hunting off the ground, and now because you're set up so light that you can get up into the tree. And I'm sure it helps, like, especially hunting in laurel and stuff, being able just to see above it a little bit. And
for sure, yeah, it's been great this year. Like, and the one day I wasn't in a tree, I was still hunting. It was windy and wet as the day that I killed that deer, but it's like the only day I hunted on the ground this year.
That's crazy. And so your experience with one sticking has been good, because like I'd worked some events for Tethered and watched Carl doing these one sticking demos for people, and I joke with him. I said, I'm not doing that. I said that looks like looks difficult, and he's like, I'm telling you, you got to try it. And I feel like I need to play with it this summer.
Well, yeah, you got to check it out. Like, well, I hadn't even dipped into the like 4-stick method or anything like that. I went straight to one sticking with the aider, and I'm not looking back. It was, yeah, it's light. It's great, man. You got to check it out.
Really? Man,
Yes.
that is sweet. I'm pumped that you told me that, because I've heard people were doing it a lot, and I wanted to hear from somebody that was kind of new to it and see what they thought with it.
Yeah, I had never used climbing sticks, and yeah, I just bought a Lone Wolf Custom Gear double step and an aider, and slowly worked myself up the tree and did it for the first time and rappelled right out. Yeah, it don't take much to get used to. It's great.
Did you just learn, off of YouTube or something, as far as like what other stuff you needed to get for it? And
yeah, pretty well.
Yeah.
Can't remember that website where I got some of my information. Some like Saddle Hunter website or something.
Huh. That's cool. I'm pumped that you told me that. I'm gonna have to check that out, because it's not that like my sticks weigh much of anything, and but one, it's pretty cool to do that, and two, it even cuts down on more weight and the amount of stuff that you need to carry in with you.
Yeah, it's fun flying out of the tree, and besides being fun, you get down in like 30 seconds and you're done.
Yeah, that's what takedown is like.
That's incredible. Yeah, like there's no more like packing up a climbing tree stand and putting bungees on it and all that mess. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that sounds awesome. So, what did that? You had there was a buck. I think was it 2019? You killed like just an absolute mega giant.
Yeah, I was 19.
Is that 19? So that was off the ground?
Yep.
So talk a little bit about that deer. Did you know anything about him?
No, I had no idea.
Really?
I'll tell you, Beau, that like the biggest and last deer that I've killed, like maybe the past 3 big bucks that I've killed, I had no idea they were in the area. Had no trail cam pictures of them. I was just hunting big sign, and then it happened. But that one in 2019, I had went into this area, new area. I wanted to switch it up. It was first week in November. I think I'd went in there once before and saw there was big deer sign in there, big rubs, scrapes. And on this particular day, I pushed in way deep and followed the big sign, and just kind of kept pushing in, following the sign, and was actually still walking in to get set up to the area I had in mind, and noticed a deer up the woods about 40 yards, and there he was. And he stopped all pretty there broadside, and I shot him. Oh man, you talk about tore up.
I could imagine. How big was that deer? Like as far as inches wise goes?
It was 165 inches.
Oh, and
13 points. He was a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was on one of the Mountain Buck Monday posts and stories. I think maybe last year I shared it, or a couple years ago or something. I remember, holy cow, like that deer is just insane. Like, I mean, you're no, like, don't get me wrong, like your buck this year is no slouch. Like that thing was a tank, but this deer is just like had everything, just wide, heavy points. He had his G2 was like I remember had this big like Y, almost like a Y to it, or V, that was like split, similar to the way my dad's buck looked this year, and just like it was just so cool.
It was gnarly. Yeah, he had I think 2 big points coming off his G2. That's him right there. You can see.
Oh yeah. I see him back there on the wall behind you. He got got quite a few back there.
He looks better in person.
I could imagine. They look good on camera, so I can imagine they look
Man.
even better in person.
Yeah, he's got the mass and width and everything, like you said, man. He was incredible. I don't know if I'll ever get to top that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure every time you walk past him, you're just like, damn, like that's
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure gonna try. I'm gonna try to top him and see what happens.
I know that's my I always, I have a goal, like, I just want one of those. Just, I know once I do it, like, you're gonna want another one, but like I just want one, just like jaw dropping, just deer. And I've chased a couple of them. I've chased a few of them that have just been like, they've also been very heartbreaking when you know it's probably better to not know they're there and hunting that sign. What kind of sign did he leave? Did he leave some like really giant rubs, or was it
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he left. He tore up everything. He left some giant rubs everywhere. Like, it was pretty ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So is there anything else that you can think of that if you were to leave the listeners with here, like as far as if there's like, I don't know, top 3 things that you can think of, like, okay, this is, what's kind of led to me finding some of these deer, like 3 things that you focus on, could be very generic, but what could you think of there?
I'd say putting in the absolute most time in the woods as you can, whether it's, off-season scouting, in-season scouting and hunting. Just all that time is what's going to get you a big deer. Time and hard work, putting in that effort. I don't know. I was going to say trail cameras, but I'm not too. I don't know about the trail camera.
That's funny.
I don't know. I'd say just time and hard work. I mean, that's all it takes, really, and know how to read that sign. Yeah,
the woodsmanship thing is you can't. It's so hard to describe woodsmanship on like a podcast or anything like that, but that's where that time comes into, and understanding what you're seeing, and that takes time to do that. Like, you can't get frustrated, with it. Like, especially, and even now, I spend a ridiculous amount of time in the woods as you do, and scouting and doing this stuff. But it's like you go into a new area or something, and it seems like everything is new, and it takes time. Like, there's no shortcuts about it. I mean, you have to apply information that the deer are giving you and figure out, and don't be afraid to try it and try different things and see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it just it does take a lot of looking and reading different spots and experience of thinking you're reading that spot right and getting it wrong, and a lot of that. And so yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me here, Jordan. I think this was really good. I was excited to get to talk to you and kind of get inside your head a little bit on hunting some of these deer, and Jordan comes across as very humble, and but like the Virginia mountains is just, I don't know how to put it. Like, I have not personally hunted that area or anything, but from the looks of it and the sounds of it, like, that's one of the toughest places in the country to hunt and kill mature whitetails. So like, I appreciate you coming and sharing your information with, and hopefully people are paying attention.
Yeah, of course, no problem. I'm glad to be here and appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So where can people find information on you? What's your social media channels there, if you're willing to give that out, and see some of your photography work? Because, I mean, whether it's hunting or other stuff, I mean, you obviously do great photography work. So
I appreciate it. So So my personal Instagram, where I share more of the like hunting kind of photography stuff, is at Jordan Hworth on Instagram, and my business Instagram is at Hollandsworth Photography, and I'm on Facebook, Hollandsworth Photography. Got a website and all that too. So
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jordan, for coming on. I really, really do appreciate it.
yeah, no problem. But it was a great time. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.